The world outside was drowned in an unsettling stillness as Justin's car snaked through the desolate streets of Los Angeles. The lights of the city that once seemed alive with promise now barely flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that twisted unnaturally. The air was heavy, oppressive, as if some unseen force was pressing down on everything, suffocating the very soul of the city. Justin stared at his phone. The message from Diddy burned into his mind. "You're either with me, or you're not. Make your choice." He hadn't replied, hadn't dared to. There was something wrong with all of this, something that felt ancient and predatory lurking just beneath the surface of his life. And it had all started with Diddy. The mansion that loomed before him now was different from how he remembered it. The usual opulence and grandeur had been replaced by a sense of foreboding. The gates, once welcoming, were closed like iron jaws, and the sprawling estate beyond seemed to ripple with an unnatural darkness, as if the very ground was alive with something waiting, watching. His driver, eyes glazed over and vacant, stared straight ahead, hands trembling on the wheel. He muttered something under his breath, a low chant that Justin couldn't quite hear. The sound twisted in the air, gnawing at Justin's nerves. There was no going back now. As the gates creaked open, the car moved slowly up the winding driveway, the mansion looming larger with every inch, its towering walls draped in shadow. When the car finally stopped, Justin stepped out, his legs shaky, the cold air biting at his skin. He could feel it now, eyes on him from every direction. But when he looked, there was no one. Only darkness. Inside, the mansion was eerily quiet. The lavish parties, the glittering celebrities, the overwhelming noise of life had all vanished. The hallways stretched long and empty, the walls too close, the space too tight. The air was thick, humid, but cold, chilling him to the core. Diddy was waiting for him, just as he had said. But something was wrong. He stood in the center of the room, unnaturally still, his figure draped in shadow. His face, what Justin could see of it, was no longer familiar. His eyes glowed with something dark and hollow, something ancient that had wormed its way into his soul. "Justin," Diddy said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to come from everywhere at once, vibrating through the very walls. "It's time you understood what this really is." Justin's heart hammered in his chest. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The atmosphere was so thick with dread, so steeped in something malevolent, that every instinct in his body screamed for him to run. But he couldn't move. "There are powers in this world," Diddy continued, stepping closer, his eyes locked onto Justin's, "that go beyond what you can imagine. Powers that control everything. You think this fame, this success, just happens? No. It comes with a price. A sacrifice." Justin stepped back, his skin crawling. The walls around them seemed to breathe, pulsating with something alive, something twisted. He could hear faint whispers now, growing louder, more insistent, voices that weren't Diddy's. They came from the shadows, from the very house itself, ancient and hungry. "You were chosen," Diddy said, his grin widening. "But now, you have to decide. There's no turning back. Not now. You've been marked." Justin's throat tightened. "Marked? What do you mean?" Diddy laughed softly, a sound that seemed to warp the space around them. The lights flickered, and in that moment, Justin saw something behind Diddy. A shape, a hulking, grotesque figure standing just out of sight, its features hidden in shadow. But its eyes, they gleamed, hollow and endless, staring straight through Justin, right into his soul. Diddy's voice grew softer, more menacing. "You didn't think this was all about talent, did you? This world, this industry, it's a game, and you're just a piece. But if you play it right, you can have everything. If you don't," his smile twisted into something cruel, something inhuman. "Well, they'll take what's owed." The shadows in the room began to writhe and pulse, as if something beneath them was trying to break free. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, creating a deafening hum in Justin's ears. He backed up until he hit the wall, his hands trembling. Out of the corner of his eye, Justin saw movement. The shadows, they were moving. Crawling. No, not shadows, figures. Twisted, malformed figures emerging from the corners of the room, their bodies distorted, their faces blank, as if they had been stretched and reshaped into something not of this world. They moved slowly, deliberately, crawling toward him, their hollow eyes fixed on him. Diddy stood still, his face now fully illuminated. But it wasn't the face Justin remembered. His skin was tight, almost translucent, stretched over sharp, angular bones that protruded unnaturally. His smile was too wide, his teeth too sharp, and his eyes were black voids, infinite and empty. "You don't get to walk away," Diddy whispered, his voice layered with the voices of countless others. "You belong to us now." Justin felt his breath leave his body as the shadows reached him. Their touch was ice cold, freezing him to the core. He couldn't move, couldn't scream. They pulled at him, their skeletal fingers digging into his skin, dragging him down, deeper into the dark. As the last light flickered and died, Justin saw them, the faces of those who had come before him. Famous, once beautiful, now twisted and broken. Their mouths opened in silent screams, their eyes wide with eternal terror. They reached out for him, desperate, pleading, but there was no escape. Diddy's voice echoed in the darkness, a final, chilling whisper. "The price is paid. Welcome to eternity."
There is nothing we can't make scary.